Welcome to Unleash Your Inner Badass, episode number 16. And we are the Beach Boss influencers. Super excited to be here today with y'all. And something that we're going to be talking about today is actually, it comes up a lot inside of our community as we work with other network marketers, other entrepreneurs. And in fact, actually, it was something that we kind of all had gone through this process until we learned, right? And that is blaming, shaming, and responsibility in your own business. So, how many of you on here might be frustrated with where you're at, or you've had a point in your business where frustration comes in and it's like, this doesn't work and that doesn't work and this happened and that happened, this didn't happen and I don't have this and right, and we start to want to focus a lot of our energy into what's like blaming others, blaming your situation for the lack of results maybe that you'll be getting in your business. And actually, the first step in that is taking responsibility, right? Because we're the CEOs of our business. And yes, we work with people, right? You're in business for yourself, but you're not in business by yourself. So you do work with people. But at the end of the day, you are your own boss. And with that comes personal responsibility of your business, and where you're at in that business. And if you're not where you want to be, like, how do we look into that, evaluate, and tackle some of those frustrations so that they don't become excuses that we fall back on over and over, which actually hinders you moving forward in your business.
I want to tell you guys a little bit of a story. So when I was younger, I would have been in the 4th grade, however old that is. It was shortly after I had broke my neck, by the way. I started running cross country. Like, I was on a team and I was competing nationally on a team where we were running, 2 to 3 miles depending on whatever course that you were running. And I remember when I first got started, I sucked. I got started. My dad was the one who invited me to go run. And I got started, and I remember making it to the end of a block. And I was out of breath. I was like, I can't do this. My dad was very patient because he had been running for a little bit, and he was like, you know what? Let's just stop and take a break, right? Let's just stop and take a break. So I would stop and I would take a break. And then he'd be like, okay, let's run to the end of the next street. And he would just kind of set these goals for me, right? So I ran to the end of the next street. And it got to where after we'd done that a couple times, he's like, okay, let's see if we can make it a little further. Instead of stopping at the first street, we're going to stop at the next one, right? So that was kind of my beginning to running. I wasn't good. I wasn't fast. The only reason that my parents invited me to do it was because I had so much energy. My mom was like, you've got to take this girl and like get her out of my hair for a little bit. And that was the whole reason, like, they started me on running, because of how much energy I had. And so when I started with this team, it was probably about 6 months into my running experience when they're like, okay, we're going to get her on a team. We're going to get her around kids that do what she does. I was the slowest person on the team. Okay. I got started. I remember I kept telling my parents, like, I'm just not good at this. Like, I've never been fast. I'm really slow. And they were my biggest cheerleaders. And I remember my coach one day, he came to me and he was like, can I give you some coaching? Right? He's my coach. And I was like, well, yeah. He made like this sling because my form was so bad. Like, have you ever watched Phoebe from Friends when she starts running and she takes Rachel running and she's like this, right? I mean, I wasn't that bad, but imagine like how much it slows you down when your form isn't where it needs to be, right? So he got me this sling and I started running with this sling to keep my arms where they needed to be so that I would actually like give my body the power to move forward. And the first few weeks, the first few meets that I was doing this, I was pissed off. The sling hurt me. I was like, this isn't working. I don't like I just want to go back to running how I did, because at least I was comfortable. right?
Mm,
And how
mm,
many times in
That's
our
the
business
word.
are we
That's the
like
key
this?
word.
yeah.
How many times in our business are we like this? You know, maybe some people who got started in Beach Boss, you're like, I'm doing this. I'm excited. I'm an academy member. I'm in seven figure. And we get going. And we, as your coaches, say, okay, you're going to have to get uncomfortable. Maybe you're doing a few things wrong. Here's the process that we have to get you to where you want to be. We need you to stop doing what you're doing here and kind of pivot and do something different. And not everybody, but there are some of us, and I was this way when I first started this process, right? Where it was blaming, shaming, not trusting the process,
Resisting.
even and
Resist.
resisting the
Yes.
process. So as I would run, I started getting better and better, right? I was using the sling. Finally, I got to the point where my coach was like, "You don't need the sling anymore. Let's see how you do." I had trained my body to hold my hands where they needed to be. I gave my arms the strength to be where they needed to be. And I got to where I was the second fastest person on the team. I wish I could say that I was the first, that I came in first every time. I didn't. But when we moved down here into small town Utah, there was no cross country team here in my school. And so I loved running, and I started recruiting people to come and run because I wanted a team to be able to run with. And I ended up placing third. Third. The best I ever did was second, but at like a state qualifying meet, third. So when we trust our coaches, when we do what they say, even if we don't even necessarily believe it's going to work, but we just like take their faith and move forward in the direction they're trying to push us to go. If we want their lifestyle, if we want to be able to live like they do, to grow our business like they did, to not be those spammy pammies, right? And to wake up and be excited to grow our business every day, we have to learn some new skill sets. And learning those new skill sets can be uncomfortable. And the second we are hit with discomfort, our brain wants to keep us safe. And it says no, right? You know, our brains are actually wired for negative. Did you know that? We
Mhm.
are
Yeah.
wired to be negative because
It's
hundreds
survival
of thousands of
mechanism.
years ago, we were running from dinosaurs and saber-toothed tigers, and we had to keep ourselves safe. So we just automatically assumed everything was bad. That's been wired and ingrained into our DNA, and we have to step through that. When we feel discomfort and we feel ourselves resisting and stepping back, that's when we need to push forward. Because the only way we expand that comfort zone is by pushing it and pushing it and pushing it and pushing it and making it bigger.
Mhm. Mhm. I mean, a lot of that is not a lot of it, but you know, what comes up for me in experiences is a lot of entrepreneurs want to have like the things that successful people have, right? And even what we've created for ourselves, you know, a freedom lifestyle, retiring some of our spouses, you know, just, you know, creating an eight-figure company and business, but they don't want to do the things it takes to get there. And so when they're going through this process and not trusting it, you start questioning things and placing blame because I've been doing this now for 2 months and I don't have a $5,000 a week paycheck or whatever, right? And so
Mhm.
I'm going to now go, well, what you taught me didn't work, or what this strategy didn't work, or that's not working. I want to have this, but I don't want to do X, you know, A, B, and C. And that's not reality, right? If you want this business, like everybody has their own goals. Not everybody does want to retire. Some people's goals are smaller, some people's goals are bigger. But you have to be willing to walk through the process and do the things that are going to get you to that goal. And
Mhm.
the more that you resist, because change isn't easy, you know, taking ownership of what you haven't done in your business, what you have done in your business is hard, right? That's a hard pill for some people to swallow. You got to let that ego down and realize, like, oh my gosh, I'm not where I'm at not because of other people, because of me. And if you can't get to that point, that realization, and take full ownership and accountability of you're where you're at because of you, but you could also be where you're at because, you know, where you want to be because of you, then you're never going to get anywhere in your business. you know?
Mhm.
And that was something hard for me to have to go through that process, but it was a growing process. And it was so vital to my business because once that was like shared with me, taught to me by a mentor of mine, and I went through that process and I had to start taking ownership and accountability because or once I did that, then it was like, man, I blew through because then I knew that, man, I get to this point and I'm spiraling, right? And I'm like, this isn't working. And oh my gosh, like, I'm not where I want to be now. I feel like I'm further back. And you start to want to blame everybody else and things
Mhm.
and your situation maybe. Like, well, oh, those people got successful because they could pay for a virtual assistant. They could get tech help. They could do all these things. And I don't have that because I can't pay for that, right? Well, then you start to say, what might I do? What might I do about that? Like, how might I be able to still move my business, still get there, even though I don't have this, I don't have that, right? So it's really this whole thing is growing you as the entrepreneur because the entrepreneur that's starting this business is not going to be the same person at the end when you get there that's going to finish. This whole process, like Kat says, is an inside job, right? The strategy is going to help you, but the inside work, okay, is what's going to propel you through to move through that process. So,
I think a lot of people too, they're going to notice this in the team, right? When you first get started, okay, it's just you. And you're like, okay, I got to go find three that find three that find three that find three, right? Or 5 by 5 or whatever, right? That you're taught. And I remember thinking, okay, once I get my three, I'm done. Then I just need to help those three, right? And so that was the mentality that I had. So I went out and found my three. One of those three was Carrie, right? So Carrie and I worked together and we worked together to find her three. And what I noticed is as I built that small team, right? I built a pretty good base of a business because I had influence when I first started, not a lot, but a little bit. So I built a base of a team and then everything started to fall apart from there, right? And what I found was that number one, my influence was missing. So I hadn't spent enough time building enough audience of other people that I could go talk to. Because let's be honest, not everybody's going to do network marketing. Like, like
Yeah.
they're just not. It's not a fit for every single person. So you need to continually be growing that audience. But what I found, and it was a huge aha moment. I remember talking to Kat and Fran. I think we were on that call, and I'm like, somewhere the team is stuck. Like we just keep teaching them this stuff, and like they're not doing what we need to do, what they need to do. Now, notice my language. They are not doing what they need to be doing. Okay, there was no personal responsibility in there. Okay, your team and the people that follow you are going to do what you do. And so that comes back to what am I doing? And it was this aha moment. And Kat and Fran and I were on this call, and I was like, holy shit. We've been trying to like get this team to do all these things, but we're not building our own personal business. Like we're like, yeah, we have this team and it's incredible and they're doing their thing. But we couldn't get past this where we were. It was personal responsibility that I was missing that, and I'm not going to speak for Kat and Fran on that deal, but I just remember being on that call and I'm like, all right, well, we got to figure out what we're going to do to build our own personal businesses. And that's what I said. I'm going to focus on building my own personal business and then helping those that come to me that want to be helped instead of trying to drag, and I've talked about this before, talk about dragging my 6'8" son across the field over here. Do you think I can even pick his big ass up? No, I cannot actually, right? Like I'm 5'8" and he's 6'8". There's no way I can even pick him up. He's massive. So that's what it feels like when you're trying to carry all those people because you're like, I need them to do this. I need them to do that. And you're blaming others and your situation instead of just taking personal responsibility and being like, look, I'm going to go build this beast, whether you like it or not, and either get on board or don't, but I'm going to figure this out. And that's what we did. And that's how our entire team exploded from there. So it's just, when you think back, those little dots that connect and the experiences that have to happen. And it's so frustrating sometimes as a coach, as a mentor of a lot of people, because you can see them in that chart. They're like in that rat race and they're like, this isn't working. This is your fault. Your roadmap doesn't work. The front part of it's boring. Blah, 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 right? It works. We promise. You just have to trust the process and
Trust the
burn the
process.
boats. You got to trust the process and burn the boats. If you want to go back to, messaging strangers and prospecting people in malls and doing all those things you hate, then go back and do it. If you don't want to build online, then great. But if you want to build online, there is a certain process that has to happen to be successful. And you have to work through it, whether you like it or not. So,
yeah. Also, what we're trying to say here, the message is, if you stay in that victim mentality and blaming mentality, it's gonna slow your business down big time. And it's kind of like, amazes me, like, we give everyone the same process. We did give the same process to our team members and also to our students, and you will see that some people take off right away, right? They're like, oh my gosh, this is awesome, I did this thing and this stuff happened, this stuff works, blah 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 blah. And there will be another person that we give the same, instructions, the same curriculum, the same coaching, and they're like, nothing is working, I've done all of this and blah blah blah, nobody answers my emails, nobody answers my da, 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 da. So we can sense that it's totally different mindset and mentality, right? And those people usually get stuck forever, and eventually they quit because they think they're not successful because some other people didn't do their job or something, right? So you put control in other people's hands. Like, you can't live your life that way, not just build your business. Like, if you constantly give control to a mailman, whatever, right? He screwed up my mail, or my doctor didn't fill out my prescription. That's very painful and stressful. And everything in your life is going to be painful and stressful, not just in your business. So what we're trying to tell you, that you need to take responsibility in your own hands. If your life sucks, that's because of you. If people treating you like crap, that's because of you, right? If your business is not growing and people not answering your emails or whatever, that's because of you. The energy that you give out, you get it back 10 times full. That's what's happening. So the first step would be to look at your life, right, and realize everything that's you manifested around yourself, that's because of decisions and actions and energy you put out. So if you don't like it, something has to change. And the first step, it has to start from you, right? How you see the world, how you see other people, how you see what's happened to you, and switch it from that victim mentality into the winner mentality. You actually have control of those things that you give away control to other people.
And before you guys come at Kat for the whole how people treat you, she means that your boundaries need some work, right? She's not saying if you're getting abused, that's your fault. She's saying you get what you tolerate, right? Like, that's what
you've allowed people to treat you that way.
Just to clarify that one point.
I want to know what people are getting from this, though. Like, for those of you who are on here with us live, and if you're even watching on the replay, like, what's been one of your biggest takeaways from today's discussion when it comes to your own business and your own life? Cindy,
it's to be to me, and I want to add on, because it's also who you are and who you be. And so often, and Kat talks about this a lot, and we talk about this a lot in both in our seven-figure roadmap and in the academy, is so often, as business owners and entrepreneurs, we think that we need to have everything, and once we've got everything, then we can start becoming the person. It's the wrong way around, and you need to start being that person. You need to start being that badass, and once you start being that badass and behaving like a badass, okay, and taking ownership of your life, of your business, of the actions that you take in your business, taking ownership of everything that you do, then you start getting what you want. But it is being that person and taking ownership of everything that you do. And yeah, I mean, I can't say it enough, and it's what everybody said already. But it's important.
Yeah. Yep. I love it, Liz. Our language, to be aware of it. We need to watch the language we use on ourselves too. Absolutely. Absolutely.
And just trust this process.
Yep.
We would not be teaching you the roadmap, teaching you the action steps that we teach you to do if we haven't tested it before. We've tested this all and we know that it works. But it's trusting us and trusting us that it works. And when it's just like if you had like Carrie got her coach, whatever coach you have, you employ them because they are where you want to be. And so trust that we will get you there if you trust this process and you take the action. And you may fail along the way and things might not work along the way. And being okay with that. Because if you had to listen to all of our roadmaps and how long it took us to get where we are, and how many mistakes we've made along the way, and how many times we have completely stuffed up and think, okay, well, that didn't work. Great. I'm going to actually celebrate that, because when I celebrate that and know that didn't work, I'm not going to do that again, but I know that didn't work. Now let's figure something else out.
Yeah.
But it's a process, and it's actually learning to, like, I can't remember, maybe Kat and I were talking about it, I can't remember, but it's celebrating the failures. And it's important to learn to celebrate the failures as well as the wins.
Yep.
Because the failure is a stepping stone.
Yep.
To that win.
Yeah.
And to where you want to be.
Back to you've never met any success or not successful network marketers. You've just met quitters. That's all.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you stick with it long enough and you figure it out, that's the mentality I had when I started online. I was like, you know what? This may take me 20 dang years, but I'm going to figure this out one way or another, right? Like that. And that's all it takes is that grit to not quit. Because that's what happens is you get in that spiral of blaming. It's everybody else's fault. They did this. I would really like to know who they are.
Yeah.
There's a lot of they that happens, right? But they did this, they did that. But once you take personal responsibility and go into that, I'm going to figure this out and it's my responsibility, everything changes. It's just how it works.
And I want to add that we sometimes are harsh on you guys, but we come from a place of love and compassion. We tell you these things because we've been those people. We all been in that blaming and victim mentality state. And because we know how, it slows you down, and a lot of people quit because of that. They can't get over it. They don't know how to switch it, and they quit. And we don't want you to quit. We want you to know why things are happening that way in your life and how you can overcome them so you can be that badass. So we always come from the place of love and compassion, although sometimes we sound like total bitches.
Failure is what gets you to success faster. Because you have to learn something from it and evaluate and then do it again. I coached volleyball for 15 years. And everyone wanted to be that undefeated team. But when you're undefeated, a lot of times you're not evaluating because you got to win, right? And so the best teams are ones who lose along the way, but then when it comes down to the playoffs or it comes to the championships, that's when they show up and do the work that they've been working on. Because if you just win all the time, there's not going to be evaluation of this and that happening. And, but because you have failed, over and over what not to do, what to do. So failure is not bad, like Fran said, okay? Failure is going to get you to success faster. All of us just failed forward faster. Go out there and just start taking action and be okay with failing, because then you're going to learn. There's a process of learning, and you're going to get back up and you're going to do it again. You're going to move maybe 5 steps down. You're going to fail again, but go do it anyways, right? Dust yourself off, get back up, and keep at it. And that's going to end our episode for today. So we will see you all next week. Thanks for hanging out.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.